Fran.
Hi, I'm Tabs.
And today we're going to unpack some of the work that we do involving mapping and analysing curricula, starting with the question, what actually is curriculum mapping?
So the phrase curriculum mapping is often used in education, but it can mean quite different things to different people, different organisations, and in different contexts. Fundamentally, curriculum mapping is about comparison, comparing your curriculum or elements of it to something else. Another curriculum, textbooks, resources, an assessment framework, and so on. And when we do curriculum mapping, what we're looking to identify are similarities, differences, or alignment between those two things.
Right. So what if I'm less interested in comparing it to another thing, but I am interested in the mathematics and the ways children learn mathematics?
Absolutely. So with Cambridge Mathematics, that is what we're interested in too. When we do curriculum mapping, we compare your curriculum to something called the Cambridge Mathematics Framework.
Ah, and what is the Cambridge Mathematics Framework?
So before I answer that question, let's first think about what a curriculum actually is. We might like to think of a curriculum as a route or a pathway, so that students are guided through a particular subset of mathematics in an education system.
Okay, well, that's a nice simple representation. This visual representation is a kind of map. So is that what's meant by curriculum mapping?
Not yet. There's a lot of things that aren't there in this representation. Not many people would call this a map. To be useful, it might need to look a bit more like this.
Okay, so that extra layer is visually representing some of the other features around the journey. But how do we make a useful map of the landscape around the mathematical route?
So this is where the Cambridge Mathematics Framework comes in. In order to think about the mathematics, the landscape in which your curriculum sits, we need to understand what that broader picture looks like. We need to create this map. So the Cambridge Mathematics Framework is a detailed, coherent network of mathematical concepts and ideas that learners might meaningfully encounter from their earliest experiences all the way up to pre-university level. And what it looks like, broadly, is what we've got on the screen right now.
Wow. And how was the framework created?
Well, the process of creating something like this is extremely detailed. The short answer is that the framework represents a synthesis of research and evidence available on teaching and learning mathematics. The connections between ideas and concepts that you see here are the pathways through those ideas.
Okay, so the Cambridge Mathematics Framework is a landscape of mathematics. It doesn't represent any single curriculum, but mathematics in the broadest sense.
Yes, what's here is more than any single curriculum. But within this map, we can choose to explore the possibilities. For example, we can look at different pathways, from different starting points to different endpoints and so on.
So you mentioned the educational research that was done. How do we know what pieces of research were used to create the framework?
Well, in the same way that the connections between ideas are shown here, we can also show the connections between these ideas and the research that underpins them.
Okay, so if you'd like to know more about the framework, scanning this NaviLens code will take you to another video that provides more detail. But for now, let's go back to the original question about curriculum mapping. So Cambridge Mathematics mapping a curriculum involves comparing it to the Cambridge Mathematics Framework. What does the process look like?
Right, so at the very top level, when we work with an organisation, it would typically look something like this. We'd start with various inputs. The inputs come directly from the organisation and its curriculum. That could be documentation, information, data and conversations that we have with that organisation. We then move into a phase of visualising and analysing the curriculum itself. We create various interim outputs, and these are part then of a collaborative process forming focal points for discussion with the organisation. We revisit the initial inputs, we ask new questions, and this cycle is likely to be repeated a number of times.
And the questions that arise typically fall into one of the following categories. For example, a focus on the organisation of the curriculum.
Or the sequencing of the mathematics within the curriculum.
we could explore the coherence of any route that the learners are taking.
Or we could study the alignment within or across areas of that curriculum.
Each of these foci can be highlighted, and an organisation might come to us with these questions ready formed, or they might emerge as points of interest from the process as we work together.
So let's dig into what the visualising and analysing process can actually look like. So we might start by using some visualisations to reveal points of interest in the current curriculum. So for instance, using dynamic representations, possibly like these, as prompts for the conversations with the organisation before deciding where to focus.
Another representation you'll see as part of this process is where we map the curriculum to the Cambridge Mathematics Framework. So the elements of the curriculum are shown here, as well as those ideas and experiences we talked about that exist in the framework. And these connections represent the closest match between the mathematical ideas expressed here and here. This is a simplified version, and so a whole curriculum would result in a much more complex picture.
Yes. So let's say we map a mathematics curriculum across an entire education system. There will be a lot of content, and maybe we'd end up with something like this. And this is a map. There's a huge amount that we can interpret from this diagram. There's the potential to zoom in and analyse it in lots of different ways.
We could zoom in on a particular topic or grade and look at the shape of the mathematics in that subset. Here you can see content from 2 consecutive stages mapped. So it might be an interesting question to ask, is there anything missing in this curriculum?
That's a very natural question to ask, often without a very straightforward answer. However, the benefit of mapping to the Cambridge Mathematics Framework, this network of mathematical ideas, is that we can reveal additional parts of that framework, highlighted here in red. And these might form bridges or connections between elements of the network that have the potential to enhance the coherence of that curriculum that exists for the learner. So that is just one of many possible outputs. Looking at subsets of information in this way, we can dig into the detail and approach various questions by exploring the curriculum mapping that we've done, that comparison with the broader mathematical landscape.
So if you've got a mathematics curriculum and you're interested in its organisation, sequencing, coherence and alignment, we'd love to hear from you.